Hey, this is Notser, and this is the Tier 5 Japanese carrier, Zuiho. She has access to 4 squadrons of 4 planes, 38 AA guns, she goes 35 knots, and the squadron build I'm running is 1 fighter, 2 torpedo bombers, and 1 dive bomber. So we're on the map, Big Race. I'm against 2 Tier 4 Japanese carriers, so I have the advantage. Unlike destroyers, cruisers, and battleships, having a tier advantage as a carrier is almost an instant win when you're going up against the lower tier fighter squadrons in your higher tier fighter group. For some reason, Wargaming is giving a higher tier carrier just a straight up better fighter group, when in historical terms they were able to have the same fighter groups that bigger carriers could hold. The only weakness for these smaller early era carriers was their deck space and their ability to store backup fighters, but they could carry any fighter that could take off on a, theoretically bigger carrier. So right off the bat, classic 2 torpedo, 1 dive bomber attack run, and I have a fighter group protecting. So I use them to take care of the enemy fighter group. And I'm always slightly adjusting my attack runs, so the torpedoes intersect and the dive bomber uses the most surface area for the dive. We light them on fire, and we're taking out the enemy fighter group. So in this scenario, the enemy has to decide whether they're going to take extra fire dot damage or they're going to take extra flooding dot damage. If they choose to put out the fire, they're going to die to the flood dot. If they choose to wait and put it out when the torpedo lands, then they take extra fire damage for that duration where they have to wait. So we take this guy out with our torpedo. We get first blood. That's a Zula. It's one of the signal flags. I don't know about you guys, but I found it's really hard to earn those flags. I'm curious if Wargaming will increase the chance of getting them, or they're probably going to make you buy, or the ability to buy flags to put on your ship. But yeah, all the fighters are being recalled. I also recall my fighter squadron. They weren't out of ammo, but there's no threat, so I'm going to rearm everything. Japanese carriers, the benefits of using a Japanese carrier is you get to run 1 extra squadron. You get access to a ship that has a lower surface detection range, so it's harder for the enemy to spot you. Same with air detection, and it's a little bit faster. They also resurface their squadrons a little bit faster, and I think that's partly because the squadrons are just smaller, 4 planes versus 6. So you should be recalling a lot and sending out often as a Japanese carrier. So I see that this enemy battleship is next to an island. I'm going to use that as a extra torpedo salvo. They'll be able to attack this as if I have 2 torpedo groups attacking from one from each side, because he's forced to sail straight or slam into the island and maybe take extra damage from friendlies. So anytime I see something like that, I'm going to take advantage of it. And I set him on fire, so he's either going to take the dot damage or he's going to take it, and it looks like he's just going to accept the dot damage while my torpedo squadron is setting up his attack. I think he's actually put it out now, so hopefully these torpedoes land and cause flooding. fighters trying to take out the enemy fighter squadron that showed up. We're gonna land 1, 2, 3 torpedoes. It looks like 2 of them hit the belt, 1 did not. If you're a battleship and you're in a scenario where a torpedo squadron is dropping their torpedoes and you can't really avoid it, you want to try and have the torpedoes hit your side. The middle 50% or 75% of your ship has belt armor that is strong against torpedoes. It'll reduce the damage you take. The ends are vulnerable and you'll take full damage, so just be aware. If you're going to take the damage, you might as well take it on your strongest part of the hull. Yeah, our fighter squadron is taking out their fighter squadron. We're just straight up a tier higher, so all of these engagements should be easy. And I'm also running with a module that increases the damage that the fighters do and the health they have. There's also captain perks where you can have more squadrons, straight up a fighter and a bomber squadron. You can have more survivability and a faster rearm. And you can have longer view range, and I believe you can have a faster rearm for torpedoes.
Autopilot mode enabled.
So a high tier captain is going to be more effective on a carrier versus some other ship, because most of the carrier perks are late tier 4 and 5 point requirement. So we're recalling. You can kind of queue up in a carrier if you're recalling or launching, and you'll see on the bottom of the screen whenever they're in the active state of landing or taking off, there'll be a green arrow pointing down or up. Anything queued up will be a yellow arrow pointing down or up, and that just means the squadron will accomplish their goal after one of your other squadrons are done landing or taking off. So it looks like our friendly, he's running with 3 torpedo bombers. So he's, he has no way of defending himself from the fighter squadron. That's probably very aggressive and dangerous, and I wouldn't recommend it. Especially with American carriers right now, they have to sacrifice a lot. They don't have access to the second torpedo bomber, so a lot of them will just run anti-air. And anyone who's ever played a carrier and is dealing with someone who's just running anti-air, it's very sickening because their fighters will just wipe you out and you'll have no way of helping your team. If you notice right now, the indicator was very wide. That's because the squadron, the enemy fighter squadron, is engaged. And when an enemy fighter squadron is engaged, or a cruiser is using defensive fire, your accuracy is greatly reduced. Our bomber lands the fire.
Taking fire.
Hopefully our squadron will be able to attack. And this battleship is in the same scenario. He's up against an island. Can't really dodge.
Group 3, ready. Returning to ship.
See, and it looks like because the enemy fighter was able to knock out one of our torpedo bombers, the opening is a safe zone for that battleship.
Group 2.
So we've killed a pretty good amount of fighters.
Awaiting instructions. Group 2.
Generally at low tier, they've got probably 3 or 4 times the aircraft in their hangar, their lower hangar deck. So you would need to wipe out all of the enemy squadrons at least 2 times in order to start seeing less overall fighters out there. Upper tier, it's basically impossible to run out.
Waypoint reached.
They just carry, 80 aircraft. It's a little insane. So we have the advantage. They only have 2 carriers and 2 battleships. I'm kind of in the middle. I like to play carriers not super forward, so I'm kind of probably a little too far forward, but right behind the battleships, so I can recall and support faster than, say, if you're at the corner of a map and
Maintaining present course.
half your time is just traveling back to your carrier. You can use your AA and your fighter squadrons to protect you from enemy torpedo and dive bomber squadrons. And this guy, he sends out his torpedoes a little too close. They don't arm, and they just hit the hull and do no damage. Same with this group. Make sure whenever you're using your torpedo bombers that you're dropping them with enough distance so the torpedoes will arm. So yeah, we're looking good. 3 of our 4 fighters are at full strength, and we only have 1 fighter down in the 2nd torpedo squadron. So, yep, grabbing them, send them out, look for the enemy. Send in my fighter to take out that torpedo as it recalls.
Autopilot.
Now, there's some strategy that you could do. You could choose to kill all but 1 of the enemy torpedo and dive bombers, so they have to recall all the way back to their base to rearm. Otherwise, when you wipe them out completely, they'll instantly start reassembling at the enemy carrier. So there could be some strategy for whenever the competitive scene goes up where you would pull off your fighters and turn off your AA when there's only 1 plane left in the squadron and make them recall all the way back to their carrier. So in this scenario, 2 ships very close, so I kind of want to get the torpedoes to overlay on both ships, so there's a potential that I could land torpedoes on both of them with 1 attack run.
3 returning. Group 4 engaging enemy.
It looks like the bomber squadron was ineffective with dive bomber, and the battleship is able to avoid all of my torpedoes in that first group. And only 1 is going to hit, and that hit square in the belt where he's got the most armor for torpedoes. And it looks like, as predicted, my first attack run, 1 of the torpedoes hit the enemy carrier, and it looks like it's flooding a little bit.
2 airborne.
But yeah, a Japanese carrier versus an American carrier, you have more squadrons you have to maintain. Your ship is a little bit weaker with AA coverage and armor, but you have the potential to do more damage to enemy ships with the extra squadron. And you've got a little bit more stealth, not much, than an American aircraft carrier. Whereas an American carrier is probably better at AA defense, both the ship itself, and they can run with more fighter groups. And their squadrons are bigger, so pound for pound, their squadrons should be able to take out enemy Japanese squadrons. Okay, there's only 2 left. Looks like that enemy carrier's all the way in the corner, so I'm going to send all my bombers on this battleship, and I'm just going to deny the A. I'm going to use my fighters to take any aircraft in the area.
Maintaining present course.
It looks like I changed my plan. So we just got an anti-air clear skies. You have to kill 30 aircraft, I believe.
Group 4 taking fire.
So that's pretty good. Overall, I feel like we were able to support our team effectively, and we were able to deny the enemy carriers from doing the same. And that's all you can ask for on a carrier. I don't see a carrier as like the carry group. I can't say like in my Bamyushki video
We're under attack.
yesterday, it was like 5 kills. I really don't see a carrier being able to do that, but the carrier can provide spotting intel and
Engaging
they can take out high-value targets easier, because they're not putting themselves at risk of damage or destruction
Returning.
like
Group 3
destroyers,
returning to
battleships,
ship.
cruisers do.
Group 3, we're under attack.
And the enemy, guys, right before my torpedoes land, but it was a good game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at the Japanese carrier. Hope it helps you decide if you want to go down one of the lines, Japanese or American, and I'll catch you guys next time.